Happy Wednesday, Unwoke Nation, and I'd like to welcome you to episode 11 of the UnWokeShow, where free speech is welcome, all subjects are on the table, and your boys bring the topics raw and uncut every Wednesday night, baby. Hey, I'm your co-host, Rich, along with my brother from another mother, Big Tim. Tim, how you doing tonight, man?
Doing great, Rich, man. So excited about tonight's episode and what we're going to be talking about. So, good evening, Unwoke Nation. We're going to get things kicked off tonight, but before we do, we want to hear from you. We want you to like and subscribe. We're on all the major podcast platforms: Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Podbean. We're on Amazon, Google Podcasts. So there's plenty of ways to find us out there to listen. We want to hear from you. We want your feedback. Again, you can reach us at feedback@unwoketheshow.com, feedback@unwoketheshow.com. Our Twitter handle is The Unwoke Show. Our YouTube is also out there as well. So, again, guys, we want that feedback. We want to hear from you. Always excited to bring new topics to you every single week. And so to kick off tonight's episode is something I've been thinking about a lot lately, and if you go back and look at some of the podcast topics out there, you kind of see why. But tonight's topic is freedom or fascism. Where is America headed?
Yes. Yeah.
So tonight I'm going to lead off the show with a quote from one of the signers of the Declaration of Independence.
Ready, go!
A Mr. Benjamin Franklin. And so he makes a great point about freedom and the term. And so in 1787, Benjamin Franklin had a conversation with a Miss Powell after signing the Constitution. And Miss Powell asked Franklin if we're a republic or a monarchy. Benjamin Franklin responded with, "A republic, madam, if we can keep it."
Wow. That is a deep answer right there, man. If we can keep it.
Yes, if we can keep it. So, we did an episode on, is freedom of speech under attack? Right? We've talked about mass shootings and how people want to restrict 2A rights, or they think this where you live in this utopia. We saw the overturning of Roe v. Wade.
Yeah.
We're seeing a rash of bans on abortions in other states.
Yes, sure.
We're seeing authoritarian nations invading other countries. Russia invading Ukraine.
Mm-hmm. Possibility of that we're still uncertain where with China thinking about wanting to take over for take over Taiwan or invade Taiwan.
Exactly, another authoritarian regime.
Yes.
Wanting to take over a free country, even though they dispute that it is still, their territory. An authoritarian nation is defined not just by the use of authoritarian powers, but by the ability to use them. And so I wanted to kick this off because, and I wanted to explore this topic tonight because it feels like probably over the last 10 to 12 years, our rights or our freedoms in some capacity have either been diminished or removed.
Yeah. And I think that's just the thing, kind of like what we're looking we're looking at in the way, as we had talked about when it came to as Tim had mentioned before, when it came to freedom of speech and just what we could say and we're not. If you guys are definitely have an interest in that, or that's actually episode 7, where it's freedom of speech under attack, as Tim had mentioned previously. But we've noticed that we've actually noticed where certain things. What would you say about 25 years ago that you'd be able to pretty much be okay saying where, and then all of a sudden it's like for whatever reason that things are now people have become very sensitive, or for lack of a better term, and it's like you don't know where where does it stop, or so. I mean, we would agree it's like there's a sense of fascism where that went on.
Well, let's look at the last presidency.
Okay.
Snuggling up to authoritarian leaders.
Okay, you're bringing up like Vladimir Putin and whatnot.
Putin.
Okay.
The January 6th insurrection,
Mm-hmm.
inciting a mob to overturn what has been determined as a fair and non-corrupt election. But I think we can even go as far back as really after the events of 9/11.
Okay.
We have somehow felt that if we give up some of our liberties in the name of expanded security, take the National Defense Authorization Act, which was signed December of 31, which allows for
the Patriot Act. Is that what it was called?
No, the National Defense Authorization Act.
Okay.
Which allows for the indefinite detention of citizens.
Yeah.
It just seems that our own, government is seizing on ways under the guise of protection.
Mm-hmm.
One example comes to mind of turning over metadata and stuff from text messages or cell phone conversations, right? That's something that has come to mind. The fact that the president can, has the ability, to issue, the right order to kill.
Mm.
Right?
You mean from a war situation, or just the fact that they're commander in chief?
So it says right here, the right to order the killing of any citizen considered a terrorist or an abettor of terrorism.
That's interesting.
Mm-hmm.
I was thinking about it earlier, what you're saying about, how they're able to detain during 9/11, how they were able to detain U.S. citizens. I know, for one thing, it made me think back to World War II, where there were actual camps that were holding Japanese citizens during that time, because
right.
I talk about there being just a fear of thinking that every Japanese person during that time where it might be an enemy of the nation, or so when they have it just makes things like you can't have that stuff. That's
right.
That's something where that's as an American citizen should never feel any fear of their government turning against them in such a manner where that, me as a black person, because this black person happens to say create a terrorist situation, then now we're going to gather up 13% of the U.S. population in the ideology where that we're doing this to protect America. That's just not that should not be happening.
Or her national interests.
Yes.
Right?
Yes, that's the word. Yeah, national
under
interest.
national security.
Yes.
Right? This blanket term that is deemed national security.
Right.
Or the fact that our president has the authority to indefinitely detain citizens accused of terrorism. I can. Right?
Well, with evidence, I'm assuming, right?
It just says
Or alleged.
allegedly, even at an alleged level.
Wow, that's a sticky one, Tim. I don't know. I mean, we here in America. I mean, and I'm sure in many other countries that we're in, the show is in or but it's like we have a firm belief in innocent until proven guilty. So,
Where does due process factor into that at this point? Because now, even arbitrary justice can be executed. The president can decide whether a person will receive a trial in the federal courts or in a military tribunal. A system that has been ridiculed around the world for lacking basic due process protections.
I disagree with that. I don't think any president should have that type of thing where every citizen should be allowed to have the due process.
I mean, Egypt and China have been denounced for maintaining separate military justice systems for selected defendants, including civilians.
Wow.
And I mean, how about warrantless searches?
Absolutely not. Yeah.
The president can order warrantless surveillance, including a new capability to force companies and organizations to turn over information on citizens, finances, communications, and associations.
No. That private companies and stuff that is absolutely wrong. It's like that.
Well, I mean, how can you? But Biden himself was wanting the IRS, the federal government, to look at what people were depositing in their bank accounts. So he was wanting banks to turn over deposit information in order to try and prevent fraud and tax evasion and stuff.
Right. Well, I mean, and even so, I mean, if I understand I guess the bill is still on the floor, but it sounds like that they were going to actually turn it down, and also, but even a proposal on that subject itself about them saying they were trying to hire 83,000 new IRS agents. But what was interesting to me is that not only were they going to hire them, but they're actually going to teach them how to use guns. What does a bean counter, it's like somebody who does taxes like that, why do they need to be able to calculate your profit and loss and still be able to fire a gun? How does that compute?
It doesn't. So first off, it doesn't compute at all, but it's all provided under the Patriot Act, right? These warrantless searches.
Yes. There we go.
And,
That's what, yeah.
It has, that power has been extended to include searches of everything from business documents to library records. The government can use national security letters to demand, without probable cause, that organizations turn over information on citizens and order them not to reveal the disclosure to the affected party.
Yeah, that's wow.
And Saudi Arabia and Pakistan operate under laws that allow the government to engage in widespread discretionary surveillance.
So, if you're walking around in Riyadh, you could be looked at.
Get out. Get the fuck out.
Yeah,
Fuck. Just get the
like,
fuck
dude,
out.
if I scratch my balls wrong, I don't want the cops pulling me over, something to say like, indecent exposure or some crap,
Well, I mean, how about NSA listening in on calls,
and
right?
that's based in that's our facility, but it's based in Canada,
right?
Yeah. So I mean, yeah, that's just nuts.
NSA, if you're listening, fuck off.
Pretty much.
Yeah. I mean, but this is all done under the guise of protection. And I'm saying that in air quotes.
Right.
Right? They're trying to protect us. And so even now, GPS data is being mined.
Ah, that's a new one. Did not know.
Yeah, and being used for tracking individuals.
Mm-hmm.
You know, the federal government says it's not looking at the metadata, but there's no way that I'm ever going to believe that.
Yeah.
Having to register, you know, say you got to register your firearm with the federal government. What does the federal government need to know what I'm buying?
Exactly. What are the last four words of the Second Amendment say? Shall not be infringed.
Right.
So, yeah, I agree. What does the government need to know about that? Now, here's something I was going to bring up and all, as you were talking about when it comes about the protection. Also, I'm going to say two words, and honestly, guys, I would love to hear what your thoughts are out there in Unwoke Nation too, and when it comes to this and all about what's considered to be freedom in your mind, and obviously how you feel about is there a possible situation going on where America's headed in this, and also, but I was going to bring up two words: Eric Snowden. When you use the example of somebody, now I know it's a sticky situation just because this was a man that was trusted with, you could say, pretty top secret, way above our, stuff like I can tell you, but then I have to kill you type stuff. But the question that's always been about him, and what's the other guy from, you know what I'm talking? Gosh, the Swedish guy, and they
WikiLeaks.
Yeah, WikiLeaks, and also,
WikiLeaks
but of course, but I'm talking about somebody who's Eric Snowden being an American who's basically, it sounds like he will never be able to come back to America. But
what is it? Assange is who you're talking about.
Assange, that's it.
I can't think of the guy's first name, but yeah. So obviously Snowden comes to mind. For me, it's not a sticky point when it comes to Snowden and what he did.
What's your thoughts?
I think what he did was, I applaud him for doing it.
Okay.
We should not be monitored, right? Listening into our conversations, all while facilitating this lie that it's about protection. The fact that he shined a light on what technically is deemed illegal activity by the federal government, I applaud him for doing that. Julian Assange on the other side with WikiLeaks and receiving stolen documents from his various sources and him bouncing around and being protected through various embassies. I think he was he extradited to the United States, or was there, I forget. I know there was
the impression like he got out before they even tried the process of that, because wasn't he was in he's Swedish, if I think I understand.
Right, yeah.
And then I think of this because, I don't think anybody, or at least I don't even know where he is. Even with Snowden, you don't know where he is. Where I saw a reporter once, I don't know how he found or he got connected with the guy, but he was able to find out where Eric Snowden was. But I'm assuming that guy, he must move everywhere.
So for a while, Snowden was hanging out in Russia. In fact, there was a movie that depicted his story, and
it was a good one too.
It was a good one. And so, there are those who would argue he did incredible damage to our intelligence apparatus. I would argue that he did the American people an incredible service by shining a light on just how secretly intrusive the federal government is being into the lives of the American people. When
you mentioned about that movie where it's like, I've tried to watch the movie and, just getting through it, where, it's like I even look at my laptop and I sit there and I'm like, okay, I'm glad that there's actually a cover on my camera.
Well, but think about your smart TV, because now it's listening.
Oh shoot! Really? Okay.
Yeah, I mean, smart TVs.
I mean, I know my iPhone is listening. I mean, so like I said, like guys, try that sometime and everything like that. You know, say something weird like teddy bear several times and see if you have ads coming up on your YouTube that talks about you wanting to do like Build a Bear or something.
I was gonna say you want to
some
build
crap
a bear.
like that.
And then now the government can employ something called secret evidence.
That don't sound right at all.
So the government now routinely uses secret evidence to detain individuals and employs secret evidence in federal and military courts. It also forces the dismissal of cases against the United States by simply filing declarations that the cases would make the government reveal classified information that would harm national security.
Let me understand this. So basically, if there's information brought up in a court case that would be damning towards the United States government, they're able to say that this is claimed as being top secret or whatever it is, classified information, and therefore it's them protecting themselves.
It could be used under the guise of national security.
That is some bullshit.
I don't disagree.
That makes no so. Which brings up the topic, guys. It's like it makes you what? Where is this country going? And for those of you guys who are in other countries too, it's like we would love to know. It's like, do you guys feel or do you guys have issues like that? Or maybe some of you guys have been through that. When it comes to sharing information on social media or anything like that. If you've ever had any of those situations, definitely reach out to us on feedback UnWokeShow.com. We'd love to be able to hear from what your situation is. We'll actually be able to give you a shout out on the show as well, so as a kind of a review of this particular topic for tonight and also. But yeah, guys, if you have issues like that in your country, definitely let us know as well. But that makes me just kind of wonder, it's like, what protection does an American citizen truly have? If you're saying we're putting together these laws to quote unquote, well, I'm doing Tim's air quotes, to protect you, but based on some of the things that you put together, it sounds like they're more about protecting themselves.
Well, it's all under the guise of security, right? And
right,
protecting the American people. So here's one I think you'll probably like. Secret court. The government has increased its use of the Secret Foreign Intelligence Surveillance Court, which has expanded its secret warrants to include individuals deemed to be aiding or abetting hostile foreign governments or organizations. These powers include allowing secret searches of individuals who are not part of an identifiable terrorist group. The administration has asserted their right to ignore congressional limits on search surveillance.
Oh, okay. If I'm understanding this correctly, man, so this is a person this is a person who potentially could be seen helping out hostile countries against America, and this policy states that we can actually do surveillance on this person. Am I getting this correct so far?
Mm-hmm.
We can do surveillance on this individual, and I'm assuming this is not just here in the country, this is abroad.
So you're circumventing congressional limits on this type of surveillance.
Question, do you think that's a sticky wicket right there?
Oh, without a doubt.
I mean, because it's like, you can kind of go two ways with, like, we're both agreeing where it's like, yeah, we don't want any citizen to be able to be, have Big Brother watching them. But at the same time, it's like, oh man, I mean, I don't know. It's like, I don't even know how to look at that. It's just kind of like.
How about this one? Immunity from judicial review. Organizations such as companies are granted immunity if they assist in warrantless surveillance of citizens, blocking the ability of citizens to challenge the violation of privacy. So now you have organizations that are potentially receiving immunity for helping the government in conducting warrantless searches or monitoring of somebody through, under this whole judicial review. I mean, that's crazy.
It's almost like, hey, we're willing to give you a pass.
It's, hey, industry, you help us, we'll help you by not prosecuting you. You have access to some stuff that we can't, that we want, type of thing.
Wouldn't that be similar to kind of like the whole thing when they were trying to propose to Facebook about getting certain information? Wouldn't that be the same kind of situation?
Or, I had mentioned GPS stuff earlier, right? Continually monitoring of citizens. That the federal government can use GPS devices to monitor every move of targeted citizens without securing any court order or review. The example is Saudi Arabia has installed massive public surveillance systems, while Cuba is notorious for active monitoring of selected citizens.
Okay, I think with either one of those countries, I'm not too shocked.
But we're using GPS here at home.
Yeah, so you're saying, what's the difference?
Yeah, we just haven't, just flat out advertised, don't look at that camera that is at the intersection so the federal government can get your face, right? I mean, that's
not America, man. That's horrible.
And then extraordinary renditions. We kind of talked about this last episode, right, with Title 42. The government now has the ability to transfer both citizens and non-citizens to another country under a system known as extraordinary rendition. I mean, think about that. I can just take a citizen and extradite them someplace.
Does that sound anything like kidnapping?
You could make that. I mean, but it's the government, right?
So that makes it okay?
But I mean, but you're also, these new laws are being funded by security groups, right? Wanting to get these new security apparatuses in place, right? I mean, so, it's, security systems at the state and federal level, including more public surveillance camera, tens of thousands security personnel, and a massive expansion of terrorist chasing bureaucracy.
It's like, you got everybody getting whiplash. We're trying to figure out, who's watching them, where watching us is on the, like you said, whether it's on your television or on your laptop or, whatever have you. I mean, it's like this is stuff where that should not be happening.
And this is something that is really chilling to me is some of our own elected politicians shrug and say these increased powers are merely a response to the times we live in. I don't know if you're familiar with a guy by the name of Lindsey Graham.
Yep.
Well, good old Lindsey Graham could declare in an interview without objection that free speech is a great idea, but we're in a war. Of course, terrorism will never surrender and end this particular war. Chew on that for a second.
Wait a minute. It's almost like freedom of speech is okay, but we're almost willing to take it away from you because we're supposedly in this new war. Is that the way I'm understanding?
Yeah, terrorism never rests. Therefore, you know what? Just gonna have to live with it.
No. This is what makes me think a little bit more, and I think we did a show when we talked, again, going back to the show about, freedom of speech. And it's just making me wonder about when does the time seem like it comes where and I think I might have brought it up on episode 7 too, when does the time come where it seems like they're going to try to revamp the First Amendment of freedom of speech, expression, and stuff? And when do Americans finally say, like, no, this is part of the heart of what makes America, the country that everybody wants to come to? Well, because you can say that, where in a lot of other countries are ran by the government, like, places like Saudi Arabia and I think Myanmar and other countries like that, you cannot do public protest, peaceful public protest, by the way. You can't speak against governments or monarchies. You will die for that. So when does that time come where it seems like, oh, you know what? Let's try to revamp this freedom of speech where in the name of protecting America. Or or that could go towards any country. This might be kind of the same rules you guys might have in different countries, but when do you see where I'm going with that, Tim?
Yeah, I see where you're going with it. I get into a lot of debates with people over the Second Amendment, and and the Second Amendment itself is a pretty hot contested topic in the media today and throughout the U.S. And my whole argument with about the Second Amendment is it's not about guns per se,
right,
as much as this notion that we might be willing to give up some of our freedoms. Because Joe Biden has said in another podcast that there will be a ban on assault rifles, that they will get it done. And so, again, that's restricting somebody's freedom. And people will get down in the minutia of what do people need an AR for? Why do people need so many guns? And at the end of the day, it's not about the quantity of guns, the type of guns. It's about somebody being okay with having their own freedom or their own rights infringed, right? Let's just call it infringed. Right. Nobody wants to flat out say it's restricted or whatever. But I think that's why we're seeing a rise in, more militia activities, the Proud Boys and stuff like that.
Right.
Taking over wanting to reclaim the republic, and we're losing our rights and stuff like that. Not that this is a justification for what these militias are doing.
No.
But it's this concept that if we're okay with having something, if we're okay with having one of our foundational rights that this country was built on infringed or restricted a little bit in the name of safety, what else can we get away with in the name of safety or protecting America?
It's like, when...
I mean, look at Russia.
Yeah.
You get arrested for protesting LGBTQ rights in Russia. You get arrested.
Wait. So wait, if people are doing protests for LGBTQ,
yeah,
people get arrested? I wanted clarity with that. No, I don't know. You were saying like, if
you get arrested.
I thought you were trying to say like, if people out there protesting and they're protesting against the LGBTQ,
no, they're protesting for it, you're going to get arrested.
Oh, okay. I was not aware of that.
They will arrest gay performers on stage.
Oh, okay.
Like, I mean, there's no messing around.
Oh, in Russia?
In Russia.
Yeah.
You and I have had, I think we're on opposite sides of the coin with Florida.
Yes.
But again, it's another person wanting to, and this person being Ron DeSantis, wanting to, and actually passing laws, again, restricting LGBTQ rights, right? And so you're just, I'm seeing this possibility that we have people that are okay with some of this, right? We had Bernie Sanders preaching socialism.
Yes.
We had AOC preaching socialism. I mean, things that should never, ever be mentioned in our country. And their justification for mentioning socialism is it's not the socialism that was preached like Cold War Russia socialism. It's a different type of socialism where it's more reliant on the government. It's like, no.
Didn't they want to add sugar to the poison and try to call it like democratic socialism or
exactly.
something?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, and so it's crazy to think that we're mentioning stuff like that.
Yeah.
I think it's nuts that we're even having this discussion.
Yeah.
That we're doing an entire episode on freedom or fascism, and we live in the United States, which is the greatest country in the world.
Or just explaining, when you're thinking of, some of these groups where so like we look at Antifa, it's like, this is a group and all it says, we're anti-fascist, which is supposed to be what it means. But yet you have people who are trying to talk about, we were just doing a news story and when they hear about and saw the video of people who were talking about trying to say, kids' lives matter. And you had Antifa people out there fighting against them. And it's like, wait, what's going on here? It's like.
Exactly. And so I think where we're going is people are blind.
Easily led.
They're blind. I think they're blind to the notion that if I give up just a little bit, I'm going to gain so much more. And the way I see it, if I give an inch, I might as well just go ahead and give a mile.
Right.
Right. And, I think we're seeing that today. And to me, I look at the Constitution as that is our bedrock. That is what we founded on. That's where we came from.
Mm-hmm.
I look back at American history. I mean, we gave deuces to Europe.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, it said we're not going to live under a monarch. We're not going to live under your rule and everything that went along with that.
Yep.
Right? We fought for our freedom.
Yes, we did.
Right? And so I feel like that's just lost on today.
Yeah, and I agree with that, Tim. I look at a lot of the younger generation, and we see about how, like you were mentioning before, AOCs and a lot of people you say what are in their 20s and 30s and stuff like that, and you start to listen to, some of their ideologies, try to say, well, yeah, this is the reason why we have to have it like that, but then you ask them simple questions on what history is, and they have absolutely no clue. It's like I don't understand how people can have confidence in the future of how this country can go and run smoothly when you have a generation that doesn't understand like what is, when people sit there and they say like, oh, well, just America's just such a bad place and it's horrible and everything like that. I'm like, do you know what it's like to be in a country and everything like that? Well, they'll pretty much chop your fucking head off and everything for speaking against their government.
Saudi Arabia.
Yep.
Cuba.
Yeah.
Hungary is definitely,
North Korea.
I mean,
they do.
China.
Yeah. I mean,
these places don't mess. I mean, they're not messing around.
Exactly. They're not messing around at all. I mean, people not understanding the simple freedoms that you have in this country just to be able to talk. I mean, like I said, just simple stuff. I mean, even physically. I mean, there are countries out there where that if you are holding, I don't care if it's your wife's hand or something like that, or where I mean, you'll get arrested by the moral police or something like that. Or where so when I hear people out there are saying about how bad this country is, it's like, you know what? You need to go over to some countries and all that have maybe military or a tyrannical type like that. And so you say something wrong, that's what happens.
Yeah, I don't disagree. It's scary to me to see that we have our own elected officials that are cozying up to some of these ideas.
Yeah.
Of what authoritarianism is. I mean, and we should be concerned about that.
Yes.
But what is it about embracing this sense of authoritarianism? Why? We should be calling them out on it. And, you know, I want to wrap up the show with something, James Madison said. And James Madison warned that we need a system that didn't depend on the good intentions or motivations of our rulers. If men were angels, no government would be necessary.
Yep. That's facts right there.
And so looking at this, you have politicians in power making bad decisions.
Mm-hmm.
And now you and I are talking about fascism, this ideology that fascism, authoritarianism, whatever you want to call it, autocratic rule, whatever.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, we're seeing this in our politicians, and it scares the shit out of me.
Oh, I mean, it scares me too. Where I mean, just the fact that as Tim had said, the fact that we're even talking about fascism. I mean, that's stuff that we read in the history book with Benito Mussolini, and we just knew it was his history. Okay, that's not going to happen again. And also, but you're right. When we're sitting here watching every single day, in the hallowed halls of our governments, and they're talking about wanting to put together these different rules and laws, where thinking that we know what's the best for the good of the country and all this other stuff, and then whether it's fascism or socialism, communism, or it's like that, and people are being for this. I mean, it's crazy. It makes me kind of go back to what was it, probably back in the 1950s, and also when they had the communist hearings and stuff like that. Yeah. And imagine you get some of those congressional people brought back to life today and say, like, guys, this is your country. Well, what are your thoughts?
How about if our forefathers were alive today, all hell would break loose.
Oh yeah,
because I don't think they ever had any intention of seeing how our government has turned out. I mean, I think it would be just a full-on call to arms. We are government. We are coming. We are tossing you out. This is not what
this isn't what we built.
Yeah, we didn't build. This isn't the foundation type. So, I believe that America's continuing down the route of freedom, but the rise of these people who are cozying up to authoritarian ideas, like I said, just scares the shit out of me.
It does, man, and I see some of these laws whether it's from a federal level, but even all the way down to the state level, yeah, it scares the shit out of me too, and it just, I think I brought this question up to you one time, and it's like where I thought to myself, like, when we're old and we're in our 70s and 80s and all, and the kids at that time are saying, Grandpa Tim, what was America like when you grew up? And it's like the answer that you try to give, of trying to explain what was it like when you were my age, when I was 6 or, when you were 6 or 10 or something like that. It's like, Grandpa Tim, what was it like? What was America like when you were growing up?
Freedom and liberty existed.
Yeah.
And I'm really concerned about what the next 20 to 25 years are going to look like.
Yeah.
So, Again, I'm going to close it with, if men were angels, no government would be necessary. I completely agree.
Yeah.
All right, Unwoke Nation, thank you so much for tuning in tonight. Again, we would love to get your feedback. You can reach us at feedback@unwokeshow.com. That is feedback@unwokeshow.com. And we definitely want you to like and subscribe to us. We're on all the major podcast platforms. Tell your friends about us. You can catch us on Twitter at The Unwoke Show, out there on YouTube. Again, we want to hear from you. And Rich, great topic. I'm glad we covered this tonight. And Unwoke Nation, we will talk to you later.
All right, guys, enjoy your weekend all. We'll see you next Wednesday.